What's up guys, it's Bastian here. Today we are looking at my light side Jedi deck profile for Star Wars TCG with a bit of a Mace Windu support in there as well. So let's start with the main character here, which is Mace Windu, rocking two of the 7 cost version. This is really good to get as you're doing your initial setup. It's also pay to evade 2 or pay 1, and Mace gets +2 power for this attack. Really nice little solid card. I do prefer the promo version though, it's just got a slightly better facial expression of Samuel L. Jackson there. Okay, here we go. One copy of the A-cost Windu. I think it is an absolutely brilliant card. It does give each of your other Jedi +1 power as long as he's in the character arena. He also has overkill, pay 3, evade 3. Does pretty much everything you want, really, especially in a Jedi deck like this. 2 copies of the big man, the big 10 cost Mace Windu. This guy is dangerous. This guy can, of course, first of all, generate you +1 force at the battle phase ends. Pay 5, deflect 2, pay 2, evade 3. It is fantastic. And then of course if you can stack these guys, you can, if you got this 10 cost on the top, you end up with an 80 speed, 10 dice roll, 9 health. That can do a bunch of stuff. But as I said, this deck might be taking a lot of support from this Mace Windu. It's certainly more of a generic Jedi deck. We got 2 copies of Jocasta here. 2 copies because I like to see this card for the extra card draw that you get from Jocasta. You draw 2 extra cards during your draw step and then put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck. So in a sense, you draw 3 because you're generic draw, and then 2 more of Jocasta, and that gives you a really nice little scrying effect. Pay 1, evade 2 is always really good. I mean, when you pay the equal amount of force to your evade is already good. When you pay less force and you get more evade, that's realistically the best you can get. So we got 2 copies of Jocasta here. We do have 2 copies of Anakin Skywalker. That really is not surprising because we are running Padmé. I'm going to get to Padmé in a minute. But realistically, it is also a good card. It does get a lot of work done. And it can be a powerhouse if you are okay to damage Anakin. 2 damage to himself, +5 power. And again, we got evade on this Jedi as well. Something I was very conscious on is I wanted all these guys pretty much to have evade. I'm rocking 1 Princess Leia just because I think it's cool to have at least 1 Padawan in the deck. And of course, again, she has evade, and she also allows to draw 1 extra card during her draw step, which is always good. That's why we're rocking Jocasta as well. So there you go. 1 copy of Kit Fisto, one copy of Isla Secura, 1 copy of Plo Koon. We got 1 copy of Obi-Wan Kenobi, 1 Qui-Gon, and 1 Shakti. These cards are pretty much interchangeable. They're all just in here to be more Jedi. Plo Koon is good, gets +1 power. Isla Secura can heal back all the damage. Kit Fisto is as generic as it comes. Obi-Wan can technically jump into a starfighter. Qui-Gon can get you quite a lot of extra. Is it force? No, one of your Jedi gets +4 power. That's the one, and you can untap it. And Shakti, well, I had 1 in foil, so I thought I'm gonna throw it in the deck as well. And then finally, as I said, we got 2 copies of Padmé Amidala. As long as she's in the character arena, all your Jedi gets +10 speed and Anakin gets +2 power. So I didn't want to pass up that opportunity to have at least 1 playable Anakin in the deck. So Padmé is here, but I predominantly run her for that +10 speed on all the Jedis. And of course, with that in mind, I'm trying to run as many Jedi in the deck as possible. Starting with the ground units, I run 4 Elite Jedi Squad. It's just a cheap little ground unit. Critical hit 2 is really good, but it's mostly cannon fodder. you go. Give you a close up there. There you go. So we got 4 copies of Elite Jedi Squad. Just like, you know, cheap and cheerful. We've got 2 copies of Jedi Patrol. That's because I only have 2 copies. And when it decides to focus, I'll show you that it's very similar to the Tatooine Jawa Sandcrawler. This one will allow you to tap it, draw a card, and discard a card from your hand. You can only do this during your build step. I think this is definitely an important card for the deck, even with the camera not focusing properly. And we got 4 copies of Jedi Heroes. Kind of like a big, nice beat stick for the ground. Pay to evade 1 is, again, very good. I like to have it not just on characters but on ground units as well. And, you know, rolling 6 dice is pretty good. If you have Padmé out, then of course it will be even quicker. You get a 60 speed on this if you got Padmé out. And then until I get my other 2 Jedi Patrols, 2 Jawa Sandcrawlers are here. They are, for all intents and purposes, there to be token placeholders for Jedi Patrol. Not that Jawa Sandcrawlers aren't great cards. They are great cards. Draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards. Keeps their hand fresh, keeps their hand going. So we got 2 copies of that here. I'm only rocking 12 cards on the ground because, well, I'm very much focused on the character arena, and we've got a lot of nice little neat space units in here that that will hopefully allow you to get some things moving in space too. 2 copies of Jedi Starfighter here, very basic, very straightforward. Unfortunately, I don't have the SAT 10 Jedi Starfighters. If I would run those. But they're cheap. They get the work done. I'm rocking 4 Jedi Starfighter Scouts. I like that stun, especially when Padmé is out and they are even faster. Stun really only works on fast units, obviously. That should go without any explanation. But yeah, we got 4 of here. And they're only a 4 cost. Then we got 1 copy of Obi-Wan Starfighter. I would really like to get more Obi-Wan Starfighters into this deck so that we can stack it. But for the time being, it still gives us critical hit 2. And when the battle phase starts, if Obi-Wan Starfighter is in the space arena, remove all damage counters from Obi-Wan Starfighter. It's pretty much like is it Ayla Secura? Just looked at her. 1 Anakin Starfighter, just to keep it thematic. I like the pay 1, evade 1. I like the critical hit. We don't run any equipment in this deck, so that last line doesn't really mean much. And we got 2 copies of Jedi Starfighter Squadron. The overkill is great. It has pay 3, evade 1. 6 is, yeah, it's a little bit costly, but it's still a Jedi unit, and it has evade. And then finally, the best sort of big ship I could find for this deck are 2 Quad Nebulon B frigates. These are unfortunately not Jedi cards, but they do have armor and they do have shields 1. Yes, they are slow. No, they're not gonna get the buff of Padmé, but they are going to be sticking around for a long time, and just being able to have 4 dice rolls every time you do engage in space battle is going to be quite reassuring. So this is it for space, and now let's move on to our mission cards. Running 2 copies of Jedi Council Summons. Now this is a fantastic card for really any light side deck that runs any key Jedi cards that you want to fish out as soon as possible. Pay 2, build points, take any Jedi card from your deck, show it to your hand, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck, and you even gain a force. So what more would you want? It is really nice. Got 2 copies of Wedding of Destiny. That is, again, just to ensure that we are constantly drawing cards. So this allows you to draw 3 cards, and again, you gain 1 force. This is for 2 build points. Quite a good deal. And then just to ensure that we got enough force, I run 3 copies of Recognition of Valor. Count the number of Jedi you have in the space, ground, and character arena. You gain that much force. This is absolutely crucial. We do need to have a lot of force. It is an important resource for us because of all the evades that we are running in this deck. That's pretty much what's going to ensure that our units do stay when they come into play. And then, of course, if you're running Mace Windu, it is definitely a good call to run Moment of Truth. Pay a force, prevent 1 damage to any of your units. If Mace Windu is in the character arena, prevent up to 2 damage to that unit instead. So preventing 2 for 1 force is basically allowing any of your units to end up having evade 1 as long as you got Mace down. And this is really good because you can do an evade off that particular unit and also play a Moment of Truth. So you're able to basically evade twice if you got Moment of Truth in your hand. So I really do like this particular card, this particular battle card. And we got 3 copies of Out of His Misery. Out of His Misery is increasing the speed of one of your Jedi by 20, and also gives it stun 4 until the end of battle. This is one of those cards that, of course, you want to run against one of your opponent's big cards that you want to stun, so they roll less dice, and of course, very importantly, hopefully take them out in the process of doing that. And then finally, onto locations. We're running 2 copies of the Rebel Command Center because we don't want Darkseid to call all the shots. We actually do like to go first, and we get that through winning the ties for speed. When you finish Command Center, you draw a card as well. So again, there's just a little bit more of a card influx. You don't lose the game if you deck out in this game, so it's always worthwhile to run as many card draw effects as possible. I do run 1 Ewok Village. That is because I really do want my opponent to spend their force, and whenever one of my ground units would be damaged by your opponent, prevent all of the damage unless your opponent pays 1 force. This is one of the reasons why I kind of am not super worried about running a lot of the little guys in the ground. As long as you see Ewok Village, you can be pretty ballsy with what you do there. And then finally, 2 copies of Dagobah System, just for more force, because as I said previously, we do need more force. So there you go, guys. This is my light side Jedi with a hint of Mace Windu support deck here. I hope you've enjoyed this. Up until next time, guys. Bussin signing out. Peace.